afternoon, my name is Sally Berkery and I'm the Managing Director of CEW UK. London is an international hub of shopping and glamour and is as important to the beauty industry as to our partners for this afternoon session, the Evening Standard. The readers of the Evening Standard are your customers, and in this session we've brought together a number of expert Londoners from across the industry to explore some new insights on consumer confidence, what these consumers want from beauty right now, and how London can adapt and change as a result of the health crisis. Katie Ingram, Marketing and Insight Director at Evening Standard, will chair this discussion alongside Beverley Churchill, co-founder of retail placemaking agency Churchill Husband, James Rayner, retail lead for King's Cross at Argent, and Stephanie Traore, co-founder at S&S Brand Services, who many of you will have met during her career at Selfridges. Please do ask questions via the Q&A panel at the bottom, and we'll try to answer these at the end. Without further ado, I'll hand over to you now, Katie.
Hi, thank you very much, Sally, and thank you for having us today. We're really excited by this panel. There's lots to talk about, and as Sally said, we will try and take all questions at the end. So please do pop them in as they come up, and we'll come back to them. Now, you don't need me to tell you that we have been through an intense period of change over the last few months, and we've all had to really adapt. We haven't spent so much time looking at our own faces between kind of Teams meetings, Zoom pub quizzes and family FaceTimes. I know for sure that I've definitely paid more attention to my eyebrow pencil since I've been staring at my face quite so much. And there's a huge amount of editorial content on and loads of research around this topic exactly, you know, rising trends, shifting consumer behaviour in the future of retail. And that's what we want to talk to you about today, and I'll be ably assisted in that with a fantastic panel that Sally's already highlighted for you, James, Bev and Stephanie. And I think it probably makes sense to start with each of them just giving you a quick introduction to themselves and their kind of background and current role, so that you know who's talking to you today. So Stephanie, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Casey. So I think, as Sally said, many of the viewers today are going to know me from Selfridges. I spent many years in working at Selfridges, so understand retailing and luxury really well, and have recently taken up the opportunity to set up my own digital marketing and brand consultancy. So all very new, but very exciting, and just gives me a different perspective and an opportunity to really work with brands in a different way.
That's great, thank you. Bev, over to you.
Hiya. Well, I've had the pleasure of working with both of the other panelists in my career. I've spent 25 years immersed in the worlds of both retail and real estate. First half in retail, where I was involved in both FMCG and luxury retailing, and worked really closely with Steph in Selfridges, and was head of marketing and marketing director there in my time. And then I kind of jumped ship and went into the property world and led the redevelopment of Covent Garden, which included kind of putting it on the map in many ways as a beauty quarter. I set up my own agency, which is a boutique and specialist retail placemaking consultancy a few years ago, and worked with James and the team in King's Cross a year ago. So that's my perspective and background on what I bring today.
Which leads us nicely to James. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. My name is James Rayner. I'm the retail lead at King's Cross, where we have, it's a 67 acre site, 8 million square foot of built real estate, and about 20% of that is sort of retail, leisure, culture space. My role here is sort of leading the curation of that space with the team, thankfully, who helped me to do that. And it was great to work with Bev to help answer some of the topical questions that we're probably going to discuss today, that we are facing in that sort of transition from sort of development to sort of stabilized asset, and ultimately what are customers looking for, because we're essentially competing for people's time. You know, when they come here, they choose to spend time with us, and hopefully we can kind of deliver a brand lineup with a place that people want to visit and spend time and ultimately spend their money.
That's great, thank you. So without further ado, let's kick off with our panel. We asked Londoners a few beauty questions in the run-up to this panel, and one of the things we started off with, which I just thought would be nice to highlight at this opening gambit, was kind of what was the product that they just can't live without. And right across the board, mascara was winning the polls. And I do wonder whether, to a certain extent, that might be to do with how much time, as I said, we're all looking at our faces. That would say 28% of Londoners said they just couldn't live without their mascara. Foundation, concealer and eyeliner all sort of sat in the middle between 11 and 14%. And interestingly, Londoners aren't that bothered about a tan. So fake tan and bronzer sat right at the bottom of the poll, which I just thought was quite an interesting, it might be exactly what you would expect. But for me, I found that really quite interesting. But mostly what we wanted to do was understand their retail experiences. And I think that's where we'll kick off the discussion today. So 49% of the Londoners that we surveyed had visited a cosmetics counter or beauty store in the last couple of months. And for me, that feels like a really positive number against the backdrop of some quite dire numbers and projections. And really importantly, 57% of those said that it felt well organised and safe. And I think we can't kind of ignore that as we move forward. So my first question to you as a panel is, how important is that retail experience? And what do you think how do you think retailers can work with the kind of long-term effects of the hygiene and virus control measures and changes that have been imposed on us to keep this feeling somewhere close to normal and keeping people in store? James, shall we start with you, being as you're the last one to speak? I can see you on my camera.
Yeah, sure. I think the experience from my perspective is a really important factor of why people go out, what they want to do with their time. And I also think it was something that everybody is craving an experience, having been locked up for a long period, because you just haven't been able to have those experiences. I think, the brand experience that people offer, and I'll just pull a couple of names out of here. We've got Space NK, but I know that the experience there has been diluted because you can't go in there and try things anymore the same way that you used to be able to do. So it's almost, how is that gap now being filled between the sort of experiential side of physical retail and the obviously the online platform, as retail sales increase exponentially online. Retail sales breached 30% for the first time of total retail sales during lockdown. And there's a reason for that, because the experience sort of ebbed away a bit. And something that I'm going to bring Bevan on the conversation here that we worked quite long and hard on was the experiential piece, because certainly from our sales figures, we've seen the bookable services were the guys that returned super quickly. So the beauty salons, the hairdressers, those were the place that suddenly were back up to capacity really quickly.
I think that's been reflective right across Europe, hasn't it? I saw some numbers that we reported in the Evening Standard actually that were Treatwell numbers, and I think Germany and France had like 2,000% increase year on year on bookable beauty services, which you're exactly right. It's that experience, isn't it?
And that, it was, I think that was where people were, they hadn't done their hair for 2-3 months. It was quite nice to stop cutting my own hair, I have to say, and going out and actually having some sort of experience. It's been a long time.
Beverley, do you have something to add on to that experience economy?
No, I do, and I agree with James that the things you can't buy online were things we were all desperate to get back to. I know I was kind of fighting to get hold of, Clairol root touch-up and paying 10 tons over the odds for it. Don't laugh, James Rayner. Online just to get hold of my colour, and it seems like everyone in the country is the same colour that I do for my roots. It was a relief when those personal services came back. I think it showed a weakness in, if I have to say, in the kind of physical store retail model, when you can't have the same experience, you can't have the same consultations, you can't have the same kind of support in store to test colours. And I think it's very easy to buy beauty online if you know what you're buying. And all of those customers who know the mascara they want to go to or the base they want to go to, it's great. If you're not there, it's very difficult. And I think the challenge is how brands launch new ranges and new lines when they don't have that opportunity to have that personal engagement and dialogue through their teams with people in store. You know, I've been in a number of beauty stores which it's not just you can't try on, but you can't touch. You can't touch anything. You can't pick a product up to even look at it. It's very, very frustrating as a consumer to have to go through these hoops before you can buy something.
I think that's a really interesting point, actually. It might be something that we come back to in a moment, but yeah, you can't actually. I went into my local John Lewis, I think I said to you guys in our pre-meeting yesterday, and it almost felt like it had been robbed, because you walk into that beauty hall and there's this incredible experience that you're used to having of the smells and the sights and the colour and everything there, and there just isn't anything there, and it is a completely different experience. But also the packaging and the colours and all of those things are so important in the beauty industry. Not being able to see and touch and feel those things,
It's
must be having an impact.
You know, you kind of shop with your eyes for beauty, and there's a reason, as Steph will confirm, I'm sure, that it's always front and centre in the most valuable part of the store in department stores. And in a way that the food industry has adapted, and everywhere you go, you've got kind of mini QR codes that you can kind of then take your time. You can look at the menu, you can kind of feel that you're engaging with what's on offer. I haven't quite seen that happen yet in the beauty world, where you can get that kind of level of detail you need on the product. And frankly, you know, I'm blind as a bat. So unless I can pick something up and actually read it and read the benefits and kind of, you know, the qualities of the product, I'm probably not going to buy it.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Stephanie, let's bring you in and talk, get your sense of the experience and what it means.
I mean, I think for me, it's the experience is a must. I mean, it's go big or go home. I mean, and I'm talking about that for brands and retailers, really. I mean, as well, I mean, Bev has already referenced it. I mean, and as of you, I mean, I was in the West End today, and it was heartbreaking for someone that's lived and loved, you know, cosmetics for most of her life to walk in and see this empty shell of brands that haven't even put a dummy tester out for me to actually get the sense and the feel that actually I am in a beauty hall. You know, they look closed for business, many of them. So it was very interesting. And I think, I mean, I've been lucky. I've come from an amazing teacher of experiences, and you know, a brand like Selfridges is huge on experience. And I think that, you know, they are good at just tailoring those experiences for their customer and knowing who their customer is. And and a good example for me, like things like brands, I always think about Benefit is always a good one for me, because I think, you know, when they did the fried chicken pop-up, and there's a reason for me to then think, actually, I want to leave my safe little haven and get out. And you know, James has said it, Bev said it, you've said it. It's about, people do need to try cosmetics. They do want that experience. And I think that, you know, we have somehow got to find a way that makes them feel safe and actually get that brand to hand opportunity moving, because you have to test it. Otherwise, you're just going to go to any black mascara that you find. And actually, you may decide that a slightly cheaper one is not necessarily the one that you will, you know, that you'll go for, rather than going in for your, you know, usual luxury ones. So I do honestly believe that experience is the way forward, and it's often, brands have often got it in their hands. You know, think about, what do we do for an influencer? Think about the amazing things we put on for journalists. That's what's got to start to now happen, I think, for the customer. They need some of this special experience. Otherwise, we as a panel and the rest of the viewers are just, we're not going to come in, because actually we don't necessarily need to. you know, and we're in the industry, so we're the lucky ones that actually know our products probably better than most, but we have got to encourage that customer in.
I think you just touched on a point there that's really interesting around brand loyalty, and it's something that I think is really interesting to explore when you can't go in store and, as you say, test and try. And it occurred to me in some of the survey results that we got back from our readers, they have their things like a mascara. You kind of know what brand works for you and you will continue to use it. And James, yesterday we were talking a little bit about brand loyalty. How does the sort of difference between online and in store, you know, what is the brand, how is the relationship with brand loyalty changing? And I think there's two different types, isn't there? There's the retailer loyalty and then the individual brands within it. Yeah,
and that is a really interesting question, something that as a sort of real estate owner developer we're trying to unravel, because it's almost, the traditional retail model is you open a store, you sell products, and you know that's how you rentalize the space from sales. But that's no longer the case anymore, because you know some of the points have been raised. It's about brand loyalty and brand ambassadors and how you drive people from, you know, they make the connection. I use Space NK again. They'll make the connection between the physical store and the online store, and they know that they can see the brand, you know, because they recognize it because they're passing it every day. They might pop in and make that sort of impulse purchase. But then they shop online. One of the big piece of research that McKinsey did during lockdown showed that I think it was 40% of the consumers that they researched changed brands during lockdown. And I think because of the nature of the way that we were shopping, we lost that brand loyalty to a certain extent, and we're free to try other things because of all the points that Stephanie just talked about, because you're seeing all these influencers and you're looking on whatever platform it is, whether it's TikTok or Instagram, and you're seeing all these different things, and you start thinking, okay, I will try that. I will look at that fragrance or that beauty product, whatever it might be. And you know, these guys have massive reach, you know, huge reach online. You know, the Instagram, I think the top 10 beauty have about 100 million followers just in the top 10. I mean, that's phenomenal reach. So it's very easy to see where loyalties can start changing, and you can flip-flop because you're not getting that kind of daily brand because you're walking past it. So it's something that we're wrestling with as a physical space, if you like, on how we choose the right tenants that tread that fine line between online and physical stores. And we're only at the beginning of the journey.
Absolutely, I think
doesn't it, James? But it potentially kind of makes it increases the world of choice and improves things for the consumer.
Yeah, it does.
It's a difficult.
I think it's really exciting where we're heading on this, because I think the UK is okay. We're not at the forefront of global sales, but we're certainly at the forefront of internet penetration, and how our adoption rate is now escalating. Yeah, it presents quite a lot of challenges, both to the retailers, as Stephanie's kind of pointed out, how you get across that experience, how you engage with your customer is becoming harder. And I think the next, up to Christmas is usually this is retailers' heyday, and it could be quite sad this year, and how retailers are going to respond to that.
Obviously, Christmas is it's normally, I think that goes across retail in every sector and the entertainment industry as a whole. We said we weren't going to dwell on the bad stuff, so I'm not going to touch on Christmas too much. Let's keep upbeat. Interestingly, in our survey where we were talking to Londoners, we asked them a little bit about what their shopping habits were before and what they will be after, and we saw some interesting results. So overridingly, before lockdown, people preferred to shop in store, and it was kind of over 40% of people. What we found, their predictions for how they will shop afterwards, was a real blend of both. That kind of mix of online and in store, and kind of thinking about some of those brand loyalties, those testers, those trials, and to a certain extent price as well, because you potentially, I guess, people aren't going to want to spend too much time on high street. Maybe they're going to want to go to one store and get a sense of things and then take themselves home. I don't know, that might be a prediction, but obviously that's not great for the bricks and mortar stores. So what do you think kind of consumers will get more used to in the coming months, and do you think it will shift and change again? So if our consumers are saying, our readers are saying, actually we want a blend of both online and in store more than we did before, do you think that trend is likely to continue?
Yeah, I mean, I'll pick up on that one. I think it's a well discussed topic that COVID and lockdowns 1 and now 2 have only served to speed up trends that were happening anyway. And I think this move towards omni-channel was inevitable. It's just happening very, very quickly. And if you think about it, it's the same consumer, it's their same hard-earned cash, it's the same brand loyalty. It's just different channels about how as a brand you engage with those people, and how you maintain that kind of relationship with them. And I think for kind of retail brands, you know, never, you know, one should never waste a good crisis. There are many, many, many challenging factors about what we're all facing at the moment, but the opportunity for a number of brands to rethink their strategy, rethink their business models, rethink their growth, I think is very much apparent and in the now. And I think those brands that can move swiftly and quickly and adapt and explore new channels are the ones who might actually find their win out of the current circumstances. And you know, given the audience we're talking to today, I kind of specifically thinking about the potential of some of the brands jumping on cross-border sales opportunities. You know, while we are not bringing any tourists into London, and kind of while the offices are closed and the borders effectively are closed, you know, we can't bring those tourists in, we can't bring the people to the product. Let's take the product to the people. So using channels, really innovative, really new, very easy actually to get into and access, like cross-border, means for beauty brands who previously haven't been able to get into territories like China, which is obviously an enormous market of, you know, 1.3 billion people, it's huge. They suddenly have the ability to do that, and they may not have the same cost pressures of managing an operational business, which is bricks and mortar, which they could temporarily reinvest into digital. And I think from this, we might see some really small brands who are able to move quickly and kind of adapt, really win in terms of growing their business and becoming global brands rather than local brands.
That's really interesting. I'm glad you've taken us in that direction, because I think both you and Stephanie have got some interesting views on that. And I'd quite like to know how much the London, or the brand of London, supports that international sell, because clearly London is such a sort of globally iconic city. Stephanie, do you want to start with that and we'll come back to her?
For sure. I think it's got, gosh, there's so many, as Bev has just said, like now being able to shop online has opened up so many opportunities for brands. But coming back to that specific question, I'd say absolutely yes. London is still, it's powerful as a city, and from a beauty perspective, it's very much an opportunity for a brand that can say that it's got London in the name, or it's a powerful statement, and carries a lot of weight in the beauty world. So I think that yes, things are difficult, yes, we're going through difficult times, but London is still London and has many wonderful things to see. And in fact, no tourists coming in, but actually those that are lucky enough to come in, or to be coming in, what an amazing thing, because they've got all these fabulous shops that actually nobody's in them at the moment to explore, and they've got all these amazing things that you have to go and see that they don't ordinarily, you may have to queue for, so actually it's the perfect time to start to bring people into this, and for brands to play on the back of it. So yeah, for sure. For me, it's important, and particularly in, you know, Middle East, you know, Asia, all of those areas really would brands ride on the back of a London, you know, sort of postcode or brand, if you like.
Bev, do you have similar feelings on that area?
Oh, 100%. And the audience we're talking about, particularly from Asia, are so incredibly sophisticated as consumers. They know more about brands than kind of many people in London. And one would think that's not the case, but they are so knowledgeable, so kind of informed, and do so much research that what they're looking for is new, interesting, exciting, kind of sexy brands that they can adopt and become ambassadors of before the masses do. And it increases their own social capital online. And I think that's obviously kind of something that's a huge opportunity, again, for brands to be able to tap in to kind of influencer economy abroad, in particular, because they are very, very powerful at driving sales.
Great, thank you. It's fascinating. I love to think about how London can kind of play into some of that stuff. I just want to change direction slightly, but before I do, I'm going to remind everybody watching that in a couple of minutes time, I'm going to open up for questions. So if you do have any, do pop them in the Q&A box. I can see there's a few already sitting there. So do take the opportunity to pick the brains of our experts today. One of the things that, and I think we've kind of talked a little bit about the one-to-one experience and how that makes a real difference in beauty shopping. The growth of AI is clearly something that's kind of cross-industry at the moment and sits in lots of different categories and verticals. One thing I'm quite interested in is there's a kind of blend here, and how can we, and with the beauty industry, do we think we'll see some of that stuff growing in store? So we've talked a little bit about blending in-store and online experiences. Do you think there is scope to grow those kind of platforms in the retail experience? I might go to James here if that's okay, because I think the sort of retail space has got an opportunity here where we are talking about keeping away from other humans.
Yeah, I think it sort of plays back to the experience point of view and some of the comments you mentioned earlier about the retail experience with face masks and all that kind of good stuff. I think a lot of other European countries have adopted a slightly better stance sooner. So the one in, one out thing. So actually you end up with quite a good customer service because you're the only person in store getting one-on-one contact, whereas usually you'd queue or you're around a counter or whatever that may be. So yeah, absolutely. I think there is going to be more tech coming into this space. I think it has to. And when you see, you know, I guess fashion brands like Lululemon buying Mirror, which is, you know, sort of starting to blend fitness, tech, well-being, lifestyle all together, and how brands are going to start to look to push out their platform to start bringing elements into it. I think, yeah, it's going to be a really exciting way for retailers to start to capture the imagination of their shoppers and how they engage them on a different level. Because if you can't try things, can you start overlaying tech? And some of the things we've seen in Asia in particular, you know, the way that they have treated lockdown and engage with their customers, yeah, they sort of, instead of furloughing their staff, they effectively turn them all into streamers. So you can then engage online with your customers 24/7 about products, and they will try things, model things, and show you, you know, whether it's makeup or bags or whatever in, you know, live. So you get the level of engagement goes up exponentially. So I think, yeah, I think absolutely it's a space we're going to see a lot more investment into.
And we're definitely seeing a growth in the kind of one-to-one consultations as well, aren't we? You know, more kind of beauty brands using that, this exact technology that we're using now around video calling and things. And I didn't know that about Asia. That's really interesting. You can see that growth.
What we're seeing is that whilst, and sort of talk about some metrics, whilst footfall might be down, conversion and spend is up. So basically those people that are coming are spending, and they're spending more, partly because once you're in store, you tend to be going there for a reason. So you've made the journey there, and you know, you're no longer sort of window shopping or browsing because you're going somewhere else, because you have come to King's Cross or wherever for a reason. So you know, we're seeing, yeah, spend and conversion go up.
Bev, I can see you furiously nodding along there.
I think it's so exciting about what you can do, but I think, as James says, you have to, and brands have to always link it back to how they can generate a sale. And you know, there have been some businesses that have sprung up which can help physical retail stores become 24-hour operations. So you get a wonderful kind of influencer, a KOL from Asia, you bring them into your store, especially now when, you know, not many people are in the stores. You make a safe environment for them to do a proper intensive deep dive into your brand, test products, show products, and you have that KOL able to help their followers be able to buy directly through their channel. And then you've got something really exciting and really interesting. It's that, how do you take your kind of one-to-one experience and turn it into a multiple sale? Because let's be honest, beauty is about volume. And it's wonderful to be able to give people rich experiences and kind of indulge customers. But really what you want to be doing is kind of, you know, selling to kind of 20, 30, 40 for every one that comes in. So it's finding those ways to take the benefit of that personal experience and consultation and expertise of the brand and all those kind of amazing brand champions and share it more broadly.
Great, thanks. Steph, do you agree with those comments? Have you got an
100%.
alternative viewpoint?
Well, no, I mean, I was listening, actually something that James said that sort of sparked a thought for me, because I thought that actually beauty and lifestyle are now merging as one for me. And, you know, and I'm really thinking about, I mean, not only from the tech side, because of course we're all so hyper socialized and connected that, you know, but actually now when I put my mask on and do my little beauty regime at home, and it's, you know, it's my moment when I'm sitting at home, that's also my 10 minutes to meditate. So actually everything is, what am I actually doing? Is it relaxation? Is it a beauty regime? Is it a lifestyle sort of? So everything is becoming sort of more blurred and soft around those edges. But of course, to Bev's point, beauty is volume. We want sales out of this, but we need it in a way. And of course, it takes us again, I think, back to the experience piece and how we can really drive that through innovative ways. And you talk to AI, and yeah, definitely. I mean, it's out there. There's a lot of brands that are doing it quite well. Sort of, there's more and more tech coming on the market, but actually, you know, as customers, and that's all of us, you know, we're so used to that now that it's almost an expectation. The customer is so well informed. And of course, the longer we stay at home, you know, the better informed we're going to be, because, you know, we've actually got that time for the customer now to, you know, research everything. They can look at price if that's their thing. They can look at what it does, how it works. They can look at the KOL, they can look at, you know, they can go on and look at the UK beauty blogger that they follow, or they can read about it. There is somewhere, you know, for someone to do everything now. And so it's very interesting that I kind of feel everything is now just merging into this sort of beauty, lifestyle, fitness. What is it? You know, what are we doing it all for ultimately? So it's fun. It's a new way to, and a fresh approach, I think, for beauty coming up.
I think that's a really interesting point. I think definitely, like you said, this kind of face mask moment has become a meditative moment, which kind of fits into wellness, which is a trend that has definitely, in fact, I think it might have been Bev that said it earlier, that, you know, there's so much research around how this situation has just elevated trends that were already happening. It'd be really interesting to see how some of those unfold as we come out the other side. Now we've got some questions, so let's start with some of those. Now let me have a look. We've covered, there's one around video calls, which I think we've covered. Okay, here's one. Is anyone brave enough to give us any predictions for 2021?
On James.
What sort of predictions?
I mean, let's try and with beauty, just because that's the topic. But,
well, I think we'll continue to see, and I think just sort of continuing on that point that we're just talking about, I think we're moving towards a hyper-personalized experience approach, because that's how you will engage with customers. So I think we're going to see the evolution of this sort of hyper-connected. One of the points that Stephanie made, that we're all constantly browsing on information, and it's really difficult to disseminate what's good, what's bad, what do I actually want to listen to. So to cut through that, brands are going to offer a hyper-personalized service to us to keep us engaged. So I think that is one of the trends. I think things like the wellness trend is going to continue. I know we haven't really touched on that, but that is sort of a spin-off of what we are talking about, where people are going to that has to continue at pace and will gather momentum. So those are kind of my probably two from the space that we're looking at.
Okay. Far be it for me to put a plug in here for newspapers, but of course, if you want brands to be trusted, then working with a trusted journalist is always a good place to start. There's just one little sales bit. Bev, Stephanie, do you either of you have any brave predictions for next year?
I think for me, it's, I mean, I agree. The wellness category for me in skincare is going to be really to continue to watch. I mean, wellness has been growing in the UK, I mean, exponentially now for many months. I mean, it really has. We take home all of these fantastic gadgets. We can do it all at home, but that's become even more important because Bev and I had to laugh because I went through the same thing with, oh my gosh, goodness, can I actually find like a crayon to fill in my roots quickly? And you can't get hold of it. But of course, now it's come down to more of have I got my face gadget because I can't go to the face gym or I can't go to, my therapist, etc. So wellness for me and skincare, I think skincare is massively growing now in the sense of being able to, really, we're looking at our faces, and I think the foundation of all of that is actually this, so how do we improve on what we're seeing, and so those two categories definitely. And we've already talked about the growth of, or the rise of tech, and I do think there is going to be all of those areas for me. And it's going to be, the money's going to be the golden question as to what's the future of physical beauty, I suppose, ultimately.
Yeah.
That would be, it's just the big thing. How are we going to make that work?
Well, there's a creative industry out there. I'm sure the answers will be fab. Bev, do you have any predictions?
I'll stick my neck out with two, which are fairly soft predictions. But one, I think the whole trend towards localism, decentralization is going to continue. I think the growth of neighborhood destinations like King's Cross is going to continue. I think innovative and flexible landlords are going to be the ones that come through this. It's going to be painful for everyone, but they are going to be the ones that come through it. And I think brands should be looking at other options, be it kind of existing developments like Coldrops Yard, or new ones coming online like Borough Yards, where you're tapping into a neighbourhood vibe. I think that's really something that's going to stay. And then kind of, it's not really a prediction, but I think from any kind of issue, a major crisis, comes innovation. And I think as a prediction, I think we're going to see, to your point about let's not be doom and gloom, I think we're going to see more innovation coming from this. This is a real burning platform, and I think it's a moment and an opportunity for brands who can adapt and kind of really think 360 around their businesses and their business models about how they can use this to springboard on. And if they don't, then obviously the analogy doesn't really end that well for them. But we'll get back. Retail will be fine. Retail is, it's not going anywhere. It really isn't going anywhere. It's about how we can make it deliver really good amenity, brilliant services, and kind of those experiences you just can't buy online.
I think that's the line of the webinar for me. Retail will be fine. I've got one more question that I'm hoping you can answer with a one or two, or a few word answers, because I'm aware that we're sort of creeping over time, but I think it's an interesting question. do you think there will be more brands post-COVID or fewer?
Fewer.
Yeah.
Fewer better.
Through this, through a downturn, you always see consolidation. But to Bev's point, you always see innovation. You look back to the last downturn. So, in short, yes and no.
Stephanie.
I'm actually going to say I think there'll be more ultimately, because I err on the side of optimism, because I do think there's going to be the whole innovative piece. And Bev's line for me, retail will be fine, and I believe that's absolutely true, because we are mid-crisis, but look at all those new businesses that have just set up. There's thousands out there that have just literally, and I mean, of course, it doesn't mean to say they're all going to make it, but out of a crisis always comes, and it'll be a bit like the phoenix rising out of the ashes, and there will be ultimately long-term more indie brands, more niche brands. They're going to start to get a voice, where in the era of sustainability, all those little brands are now suddenly on a platform that's going to fast track them. And actually, this is the time to do it. They're going to have some airtime because the big boys are struggling. So, it's how we manage all of that. So it's exciting for me to see some newness amongst all of the amazing brands we already have. So
the sustainability point is huge. We haven't even sort of touched on that. The slow beauty, conscious consumer, the blue beauty, all this kind of stuff, waterless. It's so, that's a topic in itself.
Massively, it really is. Yeah, as we were coming towards the end of the time, I thought I'm not going to take us down that because there is so much. But what a brilliant point to finish on there around the positivity of the kind of kitchen table brands that will rise up from this, where people have had time to invest in their own kind of personal endeavours, and it is an exciting time. I think we can hold on to some of that as we kind of navigate the last stages of the COVID crisis. So I'll hand back over to Sally. Thank you very much to all of our panelists for getting involved today. And Sally, I'll let you wrap up.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for your time, really, for these fascinating insights and for your input. Some really brilliant points made. And it's great to have been able to hold this discussion today, just as our situation seems to be shifting once again. I know we'll cope with it. And of course, retail will be fine. I love that line. I'm going to hang on to that one. CW will continue to offer regular webinars across a variety of topics that we hope will help you and your businesses as we move forward through this next stage of the pandemic, hurtle towards the end of the year, and Brexit. And certainly I would agree on everybody's comments that both wellness and tech are certainly high on the agenda for CW. So we'll be covering those in detail over the coming months. As I say each week in the newsletter, if you have any suggestions for speakers or topics you'd find useful, please get in touch. This is your CW. And you can find us at sally@cewuk.co.uk or info@cewuk.co.uk. We really love hearing from you. But for now, have a really great evening. We'll see you soon. And do look out for news about our 15th Beauty Awards, which will be taking place on the 15th of October. And for next week's event, which we'll be sending out in the coming day or two. But thanks so much. See you soon.